So wanted to take the time today to talk through Pipedream Connect, what we're working on there, chat through some of the problems we're solving, and just demo a lot of what we've built. And so, thank you. Hello to your dog. You know, the core Pipedream product, I think probably most of the folks who are on the call are pretty familiar with the core Pipedream product. But Pipedream historically is focused on enabling developers to build workflows and connect to more than 2,500 different APIs, but really with your own static account. So your own developer account that you connect in our UI. We had heard for years from our customers that they want to be able to extend the power of Pipedream and really use it directly for their application and have Pipedream kind of power the backend for their application, which meant using their end users, their customers' connected accounts to actually interface with all these different APIs that we integrate with. And for a long, long time, we hadn't had any ability to do that. And so Pipedream Connect is kind of an answer to that problem. So Connect makes it easy to add integrations to your app with three main features. And I'm going to share my screen and we'll go through, I can just show the docs. We're not going to go through the docs today, but I can show a couple of different demos. So we have everything I'm talking about today, with the exception of the very last bit, which is an early kind of private beta. Everything else today is documented pretty extensively in our core product docs. So if you just go to pipedream.com/docs/connect, basically everything I'm talking about today is discussed in detail here. So I recommend checking it out. There's a lot of good information here. There's, a quick start to kind of get you up and running, and we'll go through the demo apps that we point you to so that you can actually see this in action. So the first feature of Connect is Managed Authentication. So Managed Authentication makes it easy for you to enable your customers in your application to connect their account for any API that we have integrated. Like I said, today it's more than 2,500. We add more every single day, and that list is going to keep growing. And so with the Managed Auth part of Connect, it makes it easy for you to either add a connect your account button directly in your application with our front-end SDK. You can also skip any front-end work and just return a link directly to your user that they can open up in a separate page to go through the flow. So I'll demo that now. This is basically our kind of example demo app that we have in a public repo. We point you to here from our docs. It's also linked from our actual product in the UI. And so you can run this. This is a Next.js app that you can run using your own credentials from your Pipedream project and from your Pipedream workspace. And so when we load this, we instantiate the Pipedream client. We get this short-lived Connect token. And then the example app here, again, this is just an example of the implementation to show how the auth process works. This is not like the UI that you would actually integrate into your product, but any app that I want to go through the auth flow for, so I'll say Slack, for example. The demo app gives me the ability to either use Pipedream's default kind of official OAuth client if I want for now. I can also, of course, configure my own OAuth client, configure it in the Pipedream UI, enter that here. I'm going to skip it for now, and I'll just use Pipedream's OAuth client. So I mentioned this, but there's basically two ways for your users to go through the auth flow. One is you can, when you create that short-lived Connect token, you also get back a Connect link URL. And the point of this is it gives you the ability to let your users connect their account outside of your core application. So if either A, you don't have a front-end app that you're running, you don't have your own UI, you can't execute JavaScript within your own UI, or any other reason that you don't want to use this. Maybe you're running a mobile app, for example, and you want to kick your users out to the browser to connect their account. This lets you do that. So you click on this, and it just basically opens up like a separate Pipedream hosted page to go through the auth flow. You can see in this example, I've customized some of this to say, Acme Co is the name of my app that we're pretending that I'm developing for. So Acme Co uses Pipedream to connect your account. And then you can go through that same flow directly in your UI if you don't want to kick users out of your app. So you just open that flow here in the UI. So we'll go through it here. So I'll hit continue. You get the normal pop-up. I'm going to connect it to this workspace that I have. If you use your own OAuth client, of course, it'll say, Acme Co is requesting permission to access your Slack workspace and not Pipedream. And that's configurable within the Connect implementation in the Pipedream UI. So I'm going to go through the flow. So we've connected my account. And so now I'm going to go into the Pipedream UI. And we have this Connect section in the UI. And I'm going to go to the Users tab. And I have a few users who have connected accounts here. And so this is the one that I've just connected here. You can see, this is the user ID that I have here, and I just connected my Slack account, so you can kind of manage it from here as well. But you have a view of all of the users who have connected their accounts here. And then, like I said, the URL gives you the ability to just share that out either via email, text, however else you want, without actually doing any front-end implementation work. You can also configure where you want to redirect users to when they finish that auth flow. Since they're going to be a different page, you can redirect them back in your application, whatever you want to do. And so this part of the product, just managed auth, the kind of scope of this way of interfacing with Connect is we make it easy to connect your account, and then we surface an API for you to actually retrieve those credentials. So you can look through our documentation and you can list out the accounts here. You can list all the accounts in your project. You can specify based on the user ID in your system, give me all the accounts for this user. And then when you actually pass the include credentials param, you get back the actual raw credentials. So in this case, the OAuth access token. This is an example of GitHub, for example. So you'd get back the actual OAuth access token from GitHub. So you can take that and do whatever you want with it in your own application. And so that's kind of the extent of using Pipedream. That in this context, Pipedream is really just handling the auth flow. We make it easy so that you don't have to do anything with OAuth, storage of tokens or sensitive credentials, refreshing any of those access tokens, even API key apps. We've heard from tons of customers that they just don't want to deal with API keys and any type of sensitive tokens or credentials. Pipedream is SOC 2 certified. We're GDPR compliant. We're HIPAA compliant. So we've kind of gone through all of those processes to make sure that we're following best practices from a security perspective. And so that's been one of the main selling points for Connect, is really just using us to store all of those sensitive tokens. This part of it, Managed Auth, is free on all workspaces up to 1,000 connected accounts. So you can use Pipedream Connect, get the auth for up to 1,000 of your users, and use those credentials however you want in your application. And that's totally free to use. I'm going to move on to the next part of it. And I think probably the easiest way is to save questions for the end. But write them down, throw them in the chat, and we'll get to stuff after that. So the next part of what I want to demo is connecting this authentication feature to actually invoking workflows. And so this is kind of some of the core functionality that we've heard most strongly from our customers who we've been interviewing is, I want to bring the power of Pipedream to my customers. And I want to actually run Pipedream workflows, again, not on behalf of my own developer account, but on behalf of my end users. So I put together kind of an example workflow here. It's fairly basic. It's somewhat of a contrived example, but we'll go through it together to kind of show off what we're doing here. So the use case is something along the lines of someone signs up for your application and we want to summarize Notion documents and send those summaries to both my own front-end application, the UI, and also maybe to the customer Slack. So maybe there's a use case where I want to show these summaries in my own apps UI of my customers' Notions docs. And also, I want to send it to my application that I can render there and show them those summaries within the actual front end UI. So the workflow that I built does kind of a couple of neat things. So first, when an event comes in, and I'm going to go through how to actually invoke these workflows and how that works. And I'll show you the code to do that and kind of what data you pass in. I'll start here with the event. I've passed in, so this is making an assumption that I've invoked this workflow from my application somewhere, from the back end of my application, and I'm passing in a few pieces of metadata. So in the headers, I've passed the user ID for my end user, right? This is the user who's gone through the flow and they've connected their account. And then you see the body, the event that I'm sending in, it's super basic right now. I'm just sending a Notion block ID. And I'll show you what we're going to do with all this. I've got this database step. If you haven't used our database action, our query SQL database action in the builder, it's pretty neat. It does a couple really powerful things. One of which is it lets you connect to any, Postgres, MySQL, Snowflake, Azure, any type of database, any type of SQL database that we support. And you can write SQL. You get all of the things that you would expect, the linting, the syntax highlighting. And you can, of course, reference dynamic fields within your SQL query. So I'm referencing steps.trigger.context.external user ID here, because you can see, if we split the tabs here, you can see that's another way that you can reference that user ID that came in, is it's represented here. So I'm referencing that here. Another thing is this database, on my end, this Postgres database, it is enabled to only allow connections from certain IPs. So I've got, Pipedream has a setting to give you a static IP. So I've enabled that for this connection so that I can actually talk to the IP, because I've whitelisted this IP on my database. So we fetch and the other thing I didn't mention is we also fetch the schema for that database, which is really handy. So you can see all the tables, you can explore all of the tables and all of the columns and get all the information here, which makes it really easy for when you're configuring when you're writing your query, because we also give you autocomplete, but it makes it a lot easier. So anyway, I'm getting the user object from my database for that user who just came in. I'm then configuring. This is like kind of part of the big change that we just recently shipped is now when I connect an account to any on any step in my workflow, normally I go through here and I say, select account. So I go through and I connect my own like Dania Pipedream account. But now the new feature is you can actually just hit this toggle, and that lets you use the end user's auth via Connect. And so the requirements there are that, you have to send in that user ID from your system who has a connected account in Connect already. And then when we run the workflow during execution, we take that user ID and we look up the corresponding connected account that we need for this app. So in this case, we're going to look up based on the user ID that came in. So based on this user ID here, we'll look up the corresponding Notion account. And if we look back at my project at the users tab, you can see, let's copy that ID. So I have that user here, and there is a connected Notion account here. So the assumption, of course, is that they've already gone through the connect flow within your application and connected their account. So let's configure, make sure that I have the reference configured correctly here. We're going to retrieve all the children. I just pull out a couple things here from the response to make it a little easier to parse the title and all of the children from that Notion doc. I then pass it to Claude to summarize. As I was putting together the workflow last night, OpenAI had a major outage, so went with Claude instead of OpenAI. But basically, we pass that to Claude and we say, hey, actually, it's a Notion doc, not Google Drive. Here's just like a nasty kind of nested object, because you can see the data shape from Notion is like pretty wild. It's just a highly nested series of objects that contains, all of the text. So I just kind of give it makes it like kind of impossible for a human to parse. So I just give it to Claude. I say, here's the title. I stringify all of it, and then give it to Claude, and I say, give it back to me, and make sure to. I'm going to send it to Slack, so use Slack Markdown syntax, but you can do whatever formatting you want. Similarly here, I'm using my end users connected account for Slack because I'm going to send it to their Slack workspace. And I'm using the Slack channel that they've already configured and I've stored in my database. So you can see in the query, you can see that I have Slack channel stored for that user. So I'm using that here. And then I have the summary output from Claude. And then I'm going to return this as a HTTP response to that inbound event. So I've got that all configured. I've got it deployed. Now let's walk through how we actually invoke it. So this code is just straight from our SDK. So one of the things that we added is we have an SDK now to let you invoke workflows. And so if I go to that section of our doc, we go through kind of all the requirements to get this configured. One neat thing is you can now require authentication on that inbound request, which I've configured. So I'm not actually using authorization, but I think I have it configured in my SDK, so I can just configure that. So I'm going to require authorization so that not just anyone can kick off these jobs and run these workflows, but you actually have to pass a JOT access token. And so we walk you through this whole process in our docs for what you need to set up. And then, this is exactly the code that I'm using. So you can see that we have this new invoke workflow for external user method. I'm going to pass in, the arguments I'm going to pass in are the endpoint ID. I'm going to pass the full URL here. You can also just pass the ID. This is the end user who I'm going to pass in this request. Of course, this would be dynamic if it's coming from your application, right? But for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to pass this ID. And then again, this would be dynamic coming from your application. And I'm going to pass all that. And our docs walk you through how to instantiate the client and what to pass there. So I'm going to run this. And let's see in the workflow. So here's the event coming in. Let's see if I did it all right. You can see that the workflow is processing. And see if I'll put it back. Perfect. Beautiful. So went through all of this. Let's look back at my app. So I got back a response from the invoke. Here is the summary. Let's also look at what it sent me in Slack. So here's the channel that I had connected it to in my Slack. Here's like my Acme bot, Acme Co Slack bot. I told it not to give me any introductory context, but it doesn't always listen to you. But basically, the doc that I fed it was, it was actually a draft of a recent product announcement email that we sent from Pipedream, and so that's what I sent it. I said, "Hey, summarize this doc," and it gave it to me. So it sent it in my, my end users Slack in this example, and then also gave it to me directly in the client so that I can render it like in my own UI if I wanted to. Cool. So that all worked. This is in this and the core managed auth functionality. They're both in GA today. We've just recently announced and shipped both of them. I think I mentioned managed auth is free for everyone up to 1,000 accounts. Workflow invocations, anyone can run, anyone on any plan can do everything that I just did end to end. The nuance is anyone can run this in development. When you're ready to actually ship it to production, running workflows on behalf of users is available on the business plan. So we'd love to hear about specific use cases, what types of things you're adding to your app, and how many users you're doing it for. So like, what are your exact use cases? We'd love to learn more and have those conversations. The last part of the demo that I want to show is the newest part. This is in early access in beta. And basically this lets any Pipedream customer embed any Pipedream component that we have available. So Pipedream today, like I said, has about 10,000 triggers and actions available across 2,500 apps or so. Taking kind of that core user ask a step further that I mentioned with, I want to use Pipedream on behalf of my customers. I want to run workflows on behalf of my customers. One really big update that we've heard from a lot of customers is I actually don't necessarily want to configure a full kind of static workflow for every use case because I need it to be a little bit more flexible what I'm doing in my app. The big use case that we've heard from a lot of customers is those who are building AI agents or other AI applications where what I'm doing and what my customers are doing with these different APIs and integrations is dynamic, and it's going to change based on either a natural language prompt, a job, or like an agentic task that I've given to my application. And so this part of Connect is taking all of our triggers and actions and making them all available via API and SDK. And so this is a demo app that we have just to show off the functionality for it. And basically it consists of kind of two main parts, two main SDKs that you can see here. So we've got a code example on the left. This is highlighting what is rendered on the right. So this is an example of a UI that I'm showing for this example for a send message to channel action for Slack, the same one that I used in that workflow actually. So we're taking this action from the workflow builder and we're making it available. Via API and SDK so that you can embed it directly in your application. You can embed it in your UI and we give you a React package to actually do that. You can also completely just roll your own UI and you don't have to use our React package. It's all accessible via API. You can also configure which of these fields you even want to show to your user. So for example, if you had an AI prompt that was something, or a natural language prompt that was something like, send this message to the general channel in my Slack. Well, I may not want to surface really either the text or the channel input for my end user. So you can actually configure what's shown here. So I just filtered out everything except for account. And now my users in my UI, they only see the connect your account button. And so if I deselect the account, for example, let's refresh this. So this would be like all that I have to render is connect to account. So my prompt to the AI is like, send this message in the general channel of my Slack. As a user, I need to connect my account. So I'll go through that flow. And this is the same flow that we saw before. You can use Pipedream's OAuth client. You can use your own OAuth client. I'll go through and connect my account. And now my connected account is here. I could, if I want, okay, maybe the channel is known. Maybe I got that it's general, but maybe I need to let my users configure the actual text. So, hello world from Pipedream. So now if I submit that here, it's going to run that action as just a one-off action. There's no workflow that's backing this. Oh, right. I didn't include channel, but that's assuming that my LLM filtered out, which in this example, it didn't do. So I got an error back saying missing channel. That makes sense. So in your UI, you could hide that as long as you pass that value in the SDK call when you actually send it. So I'm going to submit it. Cool. It says so. We return back to the SDK. We return, everything that Slack gives us in this case, as well as what some of the additional context that Pipedream has, which is like a summary of what actually happened. That you can either render in your UI or not, or use some part of this in like the next action that you want to run. So in that case, here's my Slack again, so you can see hello world from Pipedream. Cool. So in the demo app today, we have all of our actions. You can go to like Gmail here, and you can see what actions we have available. So I can say, send email, and it's going to render, again, all of the required and optional inputs for the Gmail action. I can say, don't show any of the optional props, just simplify the UI, what I show my users. We have these default style customizations here. Again, these are just for demonstration purposes. the point to demonstrate is that it's all customizable. This is just a React package to give you a starter, but you should customize this however you want to meet the design and brand and look and feel of your app. But we give you kind of a couple different themes to demonstrate that a little bit. Or, like I said, you can not use our React package at all, build your own front end. We've got customers who are doing that today, and just use our API and backend SDK to do that. And then, so, same thing here. If I wanted to connect my Gmail account, we'd go through that. I can configure the rest of it. Perfect. I think that's all that I've got for the demo. This part of the product that I've shown is available in kind of early private beta today. Let us know after the webinar. Let us know offline separately if you want to check this out. I'm running this locally right now, but the link to use it actually is available. If you just go to pipedream.com/connect, this is our marketing page for Connect specifically. You just click on the demo button here, and you can get to this demo app. You can also get to the code for this demo app. It's all public on GitHub. So you can actually see all of that today. The SDKs are all public. But let us know if you want to check out, if you want to know more information about this and get started using it. And it's all available for you to use in private beta today.